Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he loaded the last case of bottled water into his delivery truck. The summer heat in downtown Phoenix was brutal, and his uniform shirt clung to his back like a second skin. He had been working for Clear Springs Water Company for 3 years now, and while it wasn't his dream job, it paid the bills and kept him moving. As he climbed into the driver's seat, Marcus noticed an elderly woman sitting on a bench near the bus stop. She looked frail and tired, her silver hair catching the harsh afternoon sunlight. What struck him most was how she kept touching her throat and looking around desperately. Her clothes were unusual too. A flowing dress that seemed too elegant for the neighborhood, made of fabric that shimmered strangely in the light. Marcus had always been taught to help others when he could. His grandmother used to say that kindness was the only currency that never lost its value. Without thinking twice, he grabbed a cold bottle of water from his truck and walked over to the woman. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said gently, approaching slowly so as not to startle her. "You look like you could use some water. It's really hot today." The woman looked up at him with the most striking eyes he had ever seen, a deep violet color that seemed to hold galaxies within them. For a moment, she appeared confused, as if she didn't understand his words. Then her expression softened, and she nodded gratefully. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Her accent was strange, unlike anything Marcus had heard before. It had a musical quality that made even those 2 simple words sound like poetry. Marcus handed her the bottle and noticed how her hands trembled as she accepted it. Her fingers were long and elegant, with what looked like faded tattoos covering her knuckles. Symbols that seemed to shift and move when he wasn't looking directly at them. "Are you waiting for the bus?" Marcus asked, sitting down beside her on the bench. "The next one doesn't come for another hour in this heat." The woman took a long drink of water, and Marcus could see some color returning to her cheeks. She studied his face carefully, as if memorizing every detail. "You are very kind," she said, her voice stronger now. "I am lost, you could say. This place is not familiar to me." Marcus looked around at the busy street. "Are you visiting Phoenix? Do you need directions somewhere?" A sad smile crossed the woman's face. "I am visiting, yes, though not by choice." She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "I have traveled very far to be here, farther than you might imagine." There was something about the way she said it that made Marcus feel like she meant more than just distance. He studied her face, noting the way her skin seemed to have an almost luminescent quality, despite her apparent age. "What's your name?" Marcus asked. "I'm Marcus, by the way." The woman hesitated for a long moment. "You may call me Lyra," she said finally. "And Marcus is a strong name. It suits you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city traffic flow by. Marcus found himself oddly reluctant to leave. Even though he still had deliveries to make, there was something about this woman that intrigued him, a sense of mystery and depth that he couldn't quite place. "Lyra," Marcus said, testing the name. "That's beautiful. Are you from around here originally?" Lyra's laugh was like silver bells in the wind. "No, Marcus, I am from very far away indeed. A place where the sky has 3 moons, and the oceans sing with their own voice." Marcus chuckled, thinking she was being poetic. "Sounds like somewhere I'd like to visit. Is it in Europe? Asia?" Lyra's expression grew serious. "It is, beyond such places." She turned to face him fully, and Marcus felt as though those violet eyes were looking straight into his soul. "Tell me, Marcus, do you believe in things that others might call impossible?" The question caught him off guard. "I guess so," he said slowly. "I mean, my grandmother always said that the universe was full of wonders we couldn't even imagine. She used to tell me stories about other worlds and magical beings when I was little." "Your grandmother was a wise woman," Lyra said softly. "What would you say if I told you that those stories might be more truth than fiction?" Marcus felt a strange chill despite the oppressive heat. "I'd say that would be pretty amazing, but also kind of scary." Lyra nodded approvingly. "Fear and wonder often walk hand in hand. The greatest truths are usually both beautiful and terrifying." Before Marcus could respond, a black sedan pulled up to the curb with a sharp screech of tires. 3 men in dark suits got out quickly, their movements precise and coordinated. They wore sunglasses despite being in the shade, and something about their bearing suggested they weren't ordinary businessmen. Lyra tensed immediately, her hand gripping the water bottle so tightly that Marcus heard the plastic crackle. "They have found me," she whispered. And for the first time since he'd met her, she sounded truly afraid. "Who are they?" Marcus asked, instinctively moving closer to her. "Hunters," she said simply. "They serve those who wish to see me destroyed." The 3 men began walking toward them with deliberate steps. Marcus could see that under their jackets, each man had what looked like unusual weapons. Devices that hummed with a faint blue light. "Ma'am, if you're in trouble, I can call the police," Marcus offered, reaching for his phone. Lyra placed a gentle hand on his arm, and Marcus felt a shock of electricity run through his body. It wasn't painful, but it was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. As if every cell in his body had suddenly become more alive. "Your earthly authorities cannot help with this matter," she said sadly. "But your kindness has given me something precious. Hope that there are still good souls in this universe." The men were only 20 feet away now. The leader, a tall man with silver hair, called out in a voice that carried clearly over the street noise. "Lyra of the 7 Moons, by order of the Galactic Council, you will come with us." Marcus's mind reeled. Galactic Council? 7 Moons? What was happening here? Lyra stood slowly. And as she did, Marcus could swear he saw the air around her shimmer like heat waves. "I will not go quietly, Sergeant Kane. My exile was supposed to be peaceful. Your exile is over," the man called Kane replied coldly. "The Council has decided that even in exile, you remain too dangerous to live." Marcus jumped to his feet, his heart pounding. "Hey, wait a minute. You can't just threaten an old lady like that." Kane turned his cold gaze to Marcus, and even through the sunglasses, Marcus could feel the man's contempt. "Stay out of this, human. This does not concern you." "Any threat against an innocent person concerns me," Marcus said firmly, surprising himself with his courage. Lyra looked at him with something like amazement. "Marcus, you do not understand what you are involving yourself in. These men are not from your world." "I don't care where they're from," Marcus said, stepping protectively in front of Lyra. "They're threatening you. And that's not happening on my watch." Kane made a gesture, and the other 2 men spread out, flanking them. "Very well. If the human wishes to die alongside the fallen queen, so be it." "Queen?" Marcus's head spun, but he held his ground. Lyra placed her hand on Marcus's shoulder again, and this time, the electrical sensation was stronger. "You have shown me more kindness in these few minutes than I have known in decades of exile," she said softly. "I will not let you come to harm because of it." She stepped forward, and suddenly the air around her exploded with light. Marcus had to shield his eyes as energy crackled around Lyra's form. When the light faded slightly, she no longer looked like a frail elderly woman. Her hair now flowed like liquid starlight, her skin glowed with an inner radiance, and her simple dress had transformed into something that looked like it was woven from the fabric of space itself. Most stunning of all, a crown of pure energy materialized above her head, pulsing with the rhythm of distant stars. "I am Lyra Astralane, former queen of the 7 Moon Empire," she declared, her voice now carrying the authority of someone who had once commanded entire star systems. "And this human is under my protection." The 3 men immediately raised their weapons, but Lyra was faster. She gestured with one hand, and a barrier of golden light sprang up around herself and Marcus. The hunter's energy blasts struck the barrier and dissipated harmlessly. "Impossible," Kane snarled. "Your powers were stripped away when you were exiled." "My formal powers, yes," Lyra replied calmly. "But you cannot strip away what I am at my core. And you certainly cannot diminish the strength I draw from acts of pure kindness." She turned slightly to look at Marcus, who was staring at her in complete shock. "I am sorry you must see this, dear Marcus. Your simple gift of water has revealed to you a universe far stranger than you ever imagined. The hunters regrouped, their weapons charging for another assault. Kane spoke into a communication device on his wrist. Command, this is Kane. The target has retained more power than anticipated. Requesting immediate backup. Every target has retained bead. Requesting immediate backup. Acknowledged, came the reply. Orbital strike authorized if necessary. Marcus found his voice. Orbital strike? As in, from space? Lyra nodded grimly. They would destroy an entire city block to eliminate me, with no thought for innocent lives. That's insane, Marcus breathed. That is politics on a galactic scale, Lyra replied. Power rarely concerns itself with collateral damage. Kane and his men began advancing again, their weapons now glowing brighter. Lyra's barrier flickered slightly, and Marcus could see that maintaining it was taking a toll on her. How long can you keep this up? He asked. Not long enough, she admitted. My power is not what it once was, and I have been in exile for so long that I am rusty, you might say. Marcus looked around desperately. They were trapped on a busy street with nowhere to run, facing enemies with technology beyond his comprehension. But then he remembered something his grandmother had always told him. Sometimes the smallest act of courage can change everything, he murmured. What? Lyra asked. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped outside of her protective barrier. Stop, he shouted at the hunters. Before you do anything else, you need to listen to me. Kane paused, more out of curiosity than concern. You have 30 seconds before we reduce you to atoms, human. You want to kill her because she's dangerous, right? Marcus said quickly. Because she was some kind of galactic queen? She ruled with an iron fist for 3 centuries. Kane replied coldly. Her armies conquered dozens of star systems. Billions died because of her ambition. Marcus looked back at Lyra, whose expression was pained but not denying. Is that true? It is more complicated than he makes it sound, she said quietly. But yes, I bear responsibility for much suffering. But that's not who you are now, Marcus said firmly. The woman I met today was gentle, kind, and grateful for a simple bottle of water. She was alone and afraid, not some cosmic tyrant. People don't change, Kane scoffed. Yes, they do, Marcus insisted. She's been in exile, right? Learning what it means to be powerless, to be at the mercy of others' kindness. That changes people. He turned back to Lyra. Why were you really exiled? What happened? Lyra's eyes filled with tears that sparkled like diamonds. I tried to reform my empire, to rule with compassion instead of fear. My own council turned against me, said I had grown weak. They stripped away my power and cast me out to wander the universe as a mortal. See, Marcus said to Kane. She was already changing. You exiled her for becoming a better person. Kane's weapon wavered slightly. Our orders are clear. Your orders are from the same council that betrayed her for trying to do the right thing, Marcus pointed out. Maybe you should think about whether you're on the right side here. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across Kane's face. Then his expression hardened again. Orders are orders. But the brief hesitation was enough. Lyra's barrier suddenly expanded, engulfing all 3 hunters in golden light. When it faded, they were gone. I sent them back to their ship, Lyra explained, her form already beginning to fade back to her elderly appearance. They will report that they lost our trail. It will buy us some time. Time for what? Marcus asked, his head still reeling from everything he'd witnessed. Time for me to decide what to do next, Lyra said, sitting heavily back down on the bench. The transformation had clearly exhausted her. And time for you to decide whether you can truly accept what you have learned today. Marcus sat beside her, his mind struggling to process everything. So, you're really from another planet? Another galaxy? I am from a place your astronomers call the Andromeda Galaxy, Lyra confirmed. My empire spanned 37 star systems before my fall. And now? Now I am a refugee with nowhere to go, she said sadly. The hunters will not give up. They will send more. And eventually they will find me. Marcus looked at this remarkable woman who had somehow entered his ordinary life and turned it upside down. He thought about his grandmother's stories, about the wonders of the universe, about the importance of kindness even to strangers. What if you didn't have to keep running? He asked quietly. Lyra looked at him curiously. What do you mean? I mean, what if you had somewhere safe to stay, somewhere to figure out your next move? Marcus, Lyra said gently, you do not understand the danger that follows me. Anyone who helps me becomes a target. Maybe, Marcus said, standing up and extending his hand to her. But my grandmother always said that sometimes you have to choose between safety and doing what's right, and leaving you to face this alone doesn't feel right to me. Lyra stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment. You would risk everything for someone you just met? Someone who has done terrible things in her past? I would risk everything for someone who's trying to be better, Marcus replied firmly. And for someone who was grateful for a bottle of water on a hot day. Slowly, Lyra reached out and took his hand. The moment their skin touched, Marcus felt that electric sensation again. But this time it was warm and comforting rather than shocking. Very well, Marcus Chen, she said, a small smile playing at her lips. I accept your offer of sanctuary. But know this. By helping me, you have just changed the course of your entire life. Maybe it needed changing, Marcus said, helping her to her feet. Come on. Let's get out of here before more of your friends show up. As they walked toward his delivery truck, neither of them noticed the small device that had been dropped during the confrontation, still blinking quietly under the bench where they had sat. Marcus drove through the quiet suburban streets with his mind racing faster than his truck's engine. In the passenger seat, Lyra sat silently, her appearance once again that of an elderly woman, though now Marcus could see the subtle signs of her true nature, the way her fingers moved like she was conducting invisible symphonies, how her eyes tracked movements in the sky that he couldn't see, and the faint shimmer that occasionally played across her skin when sunlight hit her just right. His small apartment complex came into view, and Marcus felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. What was he doing? 24 hours ago, his biggest concern had been whether he'd have enough money to fix his truck's air conditioning. Now he was harboring an exiled alien queen who was being hunted by what sounded like an intergalactic police force. This is it, he said, parking in his assigned spot. It's not much, but it's home. Lyra looked up at the modest 3-story building with its fading paint and small balconies. It is perfect, she said softly. I had forgotten what simple, honest living looked like. They climbed the stairs to Marcus's second-floor apartment. He fumbled with his keys, suddenly self-conscious about bringing this remarkable being into his ordinary life. The door opened to reveal his small but tidy living space, a couch he'd bought secondhand, a coffee table covered with delivery route maps, and walls decorated with his grandmother's quilts and a few family photos. Please, make yourself comfortable, Marcus said, gesturing toward the couch. Are you hungry? I don't have much, but I could make some soup or sandwiches. Lyra walked slowly around the room, studying everything with keen interest. She paused in front of a framed photograph of Marcus with an elderly Asian woman, both of them laughing as they worked in a small garden. Your grandmother? She asked gently. Yes. She passed away 2 years ago. That was taken in her garden behind her house. She taught me everything I know about growing things. Marcus joined her in front of the photo. She would have loved meeting you, I think. She always believed there was magic in the world. She was wise to believe that, Lyra said, her violet eyes studying the photo carefully. I can see where you get your kind heart. The love in this image is palpable. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. She always said that kindness was the most powerful force in the universe. I guess she was right about that too. Lyra turned to face him. And for a moment, her elderly facade slipped, revealing a glimpse of the regal bearing that had once commanded star systems. Your grandmother understood something that took me 3 centuries to learn. Power without compassion is merely destruction with better organization. To harm. Before Marcus could respond, both of their phones began buzzing simultaneously. Marcus pulled his out to find dozens of missed calls and text messages. His boss, his co-workers, his neighbors, Everyone seemed to be trying to reach him. "What's going on?" he muttered, scrolling through the messages. His blood ran cold as he read them. "Marcus, where are you? The news is saying there was some kind of terrorist attack downtown. Dude, someone said there was an explosion near your delivery route. Call me back. The whole area around 5th and Central is blocked off. Please tell me you're okay." Marcus looked at Lyra, who was staring at her own phone with a troubled expression. "They're covering it up," she said quietly. "Covering what up?" "Our encounter. They cannot let the human population know about galactic affairs, so they have created a false story to explain the energy signatures and the street damage." Marcus turned on his television, and immediately the local news filled the screen. A reporter stood in front of the street where they had been just hours earlier, which was now blocked off with police tape and emergency vehicles. Authorities are calling it a gas leak explosion that somehow caused unusual electromagnetic readings throughout the downtown area. 3 suspects wanted in connection with the incident are still at large, and police are asking for any information about their whereabouts. Photos flashed on the screen, grainy security camera images that clearly showed Marcus, Lyra, and the 3 hunters. "They're calling us terrorists," Marcus said, sinking into his couch. "My face is on the news as a wanted suspect." Lyra sat beside him, her expression grave. "This is my fault. I have brought disaster into your life. Just as I feared." "No," Marcus said firmly, though his voice shook slightly. "This isn't your fault. Those hunters caused this by pursuing you. You were just defending yourself." Defending myself with power that your world is not ready to understand," Lyra replied sadly. "I should have gone with them quietly. So they could kill you?" "Absolutely not." Marcus stood up and began pacing. "There has to be another way out of this. Can't you contact someone? Someone in your empire who could help?" Lyra's laugh was bitter. "My empire cast me out, remember? As for allies, most of those loyal to me were executed or exiled themselves when I fell from power. The few who remain would never risk their positions to help a fallen queen." Marcus stopped pacing and looked at her carefully. "You said most of those loyal to you. That means some survived, right?" "A few," Lyra admitted reluctantly. "But they are scattered across the galaxy, and I have no way to contact them without revealing my location to my enemies." "What about that energy barrier thing you did? Can you communicate across space with your powers?" "My abilities are limited now," Lyra explained. "I can defend myself briefly, move small objects, and sense danger approaching. But long-distance communication requires far more power than I currently possess." Marcus thought for a moment. "What if you didn't need your powers to communicate? What if you could use our technology somehow?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Wasn't them?" Lyra looked skeptical. "Your planet's technology is primitive compared to galactic standards." "Maybe, but it's also probably not what your enemies expect you to use," Marcus pointed out. "They're looking for someone using advanced alien tech, not someone sending emails." For the first time since they'd arrived at his apartment, Lyra smiled. "You may have a point, but I would need to access your planet's communication networks in a very specific way." Marcus grabbed his laptop from the coffee table. "What do you need?" Lyra hesitated. "If I do this, it will almost certainly alert my enemies to our location eventually. They monitor human communications for signs of galactic interference. How eventually is eventually? Perhaps a day, maybe 2 if we are fortunate." Marcus considered this. "Okay, so we have a day or 2 to contact your allies and figure out a plan. That's better than nothing." "You are remarkably calm about all of this," Lyra observed as Marcus opened his laptop. "My grandmother always said that panicking never solved anything," Marcus replied, though privately he admitted to himself that he was far from calm. "She used to tell me that when life gets overwhelming, you take it one step at a time." Lyra placed her hand gently on the laptop's keyboard, and immediately the screen began displaying symbols and patterns that Marcus had never seen before. The text scrolled rapidly in what looked like dozens of different languages or codes. "I am encoding a message that will appear to your internet as random data packets," she explained. "But those with the proper knowledge will recognize it as a call for assistance." "Who exactly are you calling?" Anyone who might remember their oath of loyalty to the rightful queen, Lyra said softly. Though I fear that after so many years, there may be no one left who cares enough to answer. They watched the screen together as the strange symbols continued to flow. Marcus found himself studying Lyra's profile as she worked, noting the way her brow furrowed in concentration, and how her lips moved silently, as if she were speaking words in languages he'd never heard. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said quietly. "Of course. What was it really like, being a queen of an entire galactic empire?" Lyra's hands stilled on the keyboard for a moment. "Lonely," she said simply. "More lonely than you can possibly imagine. When you hold that much power, everyone around you either fears you, wants something from you, or is planning to betray you. Genuine kindness becomes so rare that you begin to doubt it exists at all. Is that why you tried to change things? Partly, but mostly it was because I realized that all my power, all my conquered worlds, all my vast fleets meant nothing if they only brought suffering to others. I had become exactly the kind of tyrant that I had once fought against in my youth." The laptop suddenly chimed, and new text appeared on the screen. "Someone has responded." Lyra breathed, her eyes widening with surprise. The message was brief but warm. "My queen, we never stopped believing in your vision. Help is coming. Stay hidden for 3 days. Captain Zara Nightwind, Star Cutter Rebellion." "Star Cutter Rebellion?" Marcus asked. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "My former ship captain. She was like a daughter to me before my exile. I thought she had been executed years ago." More messages began appearing, some in text, others in symbol patterns that made Marcus's eyes water to look at directly. "My lady, we have been preparing for this day. The old guard still serves. Commander Rex Valorhart, Queen Lyra. The Outer Rim systems remember your mercy. We stand ready to restore justice. Admiral Kessa Starborn. Queen Lyra. Admiral Kessa Starborn. The rebellion you started never ended. We have ships, we have warriors, and we have hope. General Marcus Ironhold." Marcus blinked at the last name. "General Marcus? Like me? It seems the universe has a sense of humor," Lyra said, wiping away tears that sparkled like stardust. "He was named after an ancient Earth warrior, actually. My empire had scholars who studied your planet's history extensively. Wait, so people in your galaxy know about Earth? Of course. Your world has been watched and protected by several galactic powers for millennia. Your species shows great promise. But you are still too young for full contact with the galactic community." Marcus's head spun with this revelation, but before he could ask more questions, his phone rang. The caller ID showed his neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. "Marcus, dear, are you home?" came the elderly woman's voice when he answered. "There are some very serious-looking men in black suits asking questions about you. They say they're with the FBI, but something doesn't feel right about them." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Mrs. Patterson, whatever they say, please don't tell them anything, and lock your door." "Oh my, are you in some kind of trouble, sweetheart?" "It's complicated, but I'm innocent. Just please be safe, and don't trust anyone in a black suit." Marcus hung up and looked at Lyra, who was already closing the laptop. "How did they find us so quickly?" he asked. "The tracking device," Lyra said grimly. "I should have sensed it earlier, but my powers are still recovering from the confrontation." "What tracking device?" "One of the hunters must have dropped it during our encounter. They have been monitoring us this entire time." Marcus cursed under his breath. "So they know we're here." "Yes, and they will be here soon with reinforcements." Lyra stood and walked to the window, peering carefully through the blinds. "I can see them positioning themselves around the building." Marcus joined her at the window and spotted several black vehicles parked strategically around the complex. Men in dark suits were taking positions behind cars and trees, and some appeared to be carrying the same strange weapons the hunters had used earlier. "How many?" Marcus asked. "At least a dozen, possibly more." Lyra stepped away from the window. "I am sorry, Marcus. I should have left immediately after our first encounter. Now they will destroy this building and everyone in it, to get to me. Not if we get out first, Marcus said, his mind racing. Is there a back way out of this building? Even if there is, they will have it covered. Maybe. But they're expecting you to use your powers to escape. Right? What if we don't? Lyra looked at him questioningly. You said your abilities are limited now. What if instead of trying to fight our way out with alien superpowers, we just sneak out like normal humans in trouble? You mean hide among your neighbors? Exactly. It's Sunday evening. People are coming home from dinner, walking dogs, taking out trash. If we blend in with normal neighborhood activity, maybe we can slip past them. Lyra considered this. It is so simple that it might actually work. They are prepared for a confrontation with a former Galactic queen, not a refugee hiding among civilians. Marcus quickly gathered a few essential items. His wallet, keys, and a jacket for Lyra. Okay, but first, we need to create a distraction to draw their attention. What kind of distraction? Marcus smiled grimly and pulled out his phone. The kind that involves my neighbors learning exactly what these fake FBI agents really are. He quickly sent a group text to everyone in his apartment complex. Emergency. Men with weapons surrounding building claiming to be FBI. Stay inside and call real police. Do not open doors for anyone. Almost immediately, Marcus could hear phones ringing throughout the building and voices rising in alarm. Lights began turning on in windows, and he could see people peering out at the black vehicles with obvious suspicion. Your people are very protective of each other, Lyra observed with approval. We look out for our neighbors here, Marcus said. And Mrs. Patterson has lived here for 30 years. When she tells people something's wrong, they listen. True to his words, Marcus could already hear sirens approaching in the distance, as real police responded to multiple emergency calls. Through the window, he could see the fake agents looking increasingly nervous as more and more residents began watching them from windows and balconies. Now's our chance, Marcus said. Can you make yourself look completely ordinary? Like just another neighbor? Lyra concentrated for a moment, and her appearance shifted slightly. Her clothes became more casual, her posture more hunched with age, and even her hair seemed to gray and thin a bit more. How's that? Perfect. Come on. They slipped out of Marcus's apartment and joined a group of neighbors who were evacuating the building under police orders. In the confusion of residents, real FBI agents, local police, and news crews that were already arriving, 2 more people blending with the crowd went completely unnoticed. 20 minutes later, they sat in the back booth of a 24-hour diner 3 miles away, watching news coverage of the incident on the restaurant's television. The official story was already being shaped. A gas leak had forced the evacuation, and the men in black suits were special federal investigators looking into potential domestic terrorism. They are very good at controlling information, Lyra observed, sipping the coffee that Marcus had ordered for her. For now, Marcus said, but my neighbors aren't stupid. Mrs. Patterson has probably already figured out that those weren't real FBI agents. Give it a few hours, and the real story will be all over local social media. Will that cause problems? Maybe, but it also means your hunters can't operate openly anymore. They'll have to be more careful. I may be in a more hunter's lime. Lyra nodded thoughtfully. That buys us time. But not much. My allies' messages said 3 days. But I am not certain we can remain hidden that long. Marcus looked around the diner, noting the late-night crowd of truck drivers, night shift workers, and insomniacs nursing coffee and pie. Maybe we don't need to hide. Maybe we need to do the opposite. What do you mean? I mean, maybe we need to go somewhere very public, very crowded, where they can't make a move without exposing themselves to thousands of witnesses. Lyra raised an eyebrow. You have somewhere in mind? Marcus pulled out his phone and did a quick search. Tomorrow is Monday. There's a huge outdoor music festival downtown, right in the middle of the city. Thousands of people, hundreds of vendors, live TV coverage. And you think we would be safe there? I think it's the last place they'd expect us to go, Marcus said. Plus, If your friends are really coming in 3 days, we just need to stay alive and free until then. Lyra was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. Marcus, you do realize that once my allies arrive, everything changes? This will become a galactic incident. Your planet may become a battleground. Maybe, Marcus said. Or maybe it becomes the place where a former queen reclaims her throne and starts building the better empire she always wanted to create. You have remarkable faith in someone you barely know. I have faith in someone who is grateful for a bottle of water, Marcus replied, and in someone who was willing to protect a stranger from her own enemies. Lyra looked up at him, and in her violet eyes Marcus could see both the weight of centuries and the spark of hope. Very well, she said softly. We will attend your music festival. But Marcus, if we do this, there is no going back to your old life. Are you prepared for that? Marcus thought about his small apartment, his delivery job, his quiet routine. Then he thought about the wonders Lyra had already shown him, the allies rallying to her cause across the galaxy, and the chance to be part of something truly extraordinary. My grandmother always said that the biggest adventure of her life was leaving everything familiar behind to marry my grandfather, he said finally. I guess it's my turn to have an adventure. Outside the diner windows, the first light of dawn was beginning to touch the horizon. Somewhere in the vast universe above them, Marcus knew that ships were already moving toward Earth, carrying with them the power to change everything. But for now, in this quiet moment between one life and the next, he was content to sit across from a fallen queen and plan their next impossible move over coffee and pie. The tracker they hadn't found yet, hidden in the lining of Lyra's dress, continued to pulse its silent signal into the darkness. The Phoenix Summer Music Festival was in full swing when Marcus and Lyra arrived at the downtown park. Thousands of people filled the sprawling grounds, enjoying food trucks, local bands, and art vendors under the blazing Arizona sun. The air vibrated with music, laughter, and the constant hum of conversation in a dozen languages. Marcus had bought them both festival wristbands and baseball caps to help blend in with the crowd. Lyra wore sunglasses that helped conceal her distinctive violet eyes, though she couldn't hide her fascination with everything around them. I had forgotten how beautiful gatherings like this could be, she said, watching a group of children chase bubbles while their parents swayed to the music. In my empire, public celebrations were always formal affairs, full of ceremony and protocol. This is just people having fun, Marcus said, steering them toward a less crowded area near the art vendors. No protocol required. They found a spot under a large tree where they could sit and observe the crowd while staying relatively hidden. Marcus had spent the morning shopping for supplies, bottled water, sunscreen, snacks, and a cheap burner phone to replace his regular cell, which he assumed was being tracked. The first few hours passed peacefully. They watched the bands perform, sampled food from various trucks, and Marcus introduced Lyra to several uniquely human festival experiences. Her delight at cotton candy was particularly endearing. She approached the spun sugar like a fascinating scientific specimen before tasting it and laughing with pure joy. But as the afternoon wore on, Marcus began to notice certain individuals in the crowd who didn't quite fit. They moved differently than the casual festival goers, their eyes constantly scanning, instead of enjoying the music. And there were too many of them wearing similar dark clothing despite the heat. They're here, he murmured to Lyra during a particularly loud guitar solo. She nodded without looking around. I have sensed them for the past hour. At least 20 operatives, probably more. They are being much more subtle this time. What's the plan? Wait for nightfall and try to slip away? I am afraid that may not be possible, Lyra said quietly. They are not just watching us. They are herding us toward a specific location. Marcus felt his heart sink. Which location? The main stage area. It is the most open space in the festival, with the fewest escape routes. As if summoned by her words, Marcus's burner phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Walk to the main stage area. Come alone, or we start shooting into the crowd. Marcus showed Lyra the message, and her expression hardened. They would truly harm innocent civilians to capture me? Apparently. Then we have no choice. Lyra stood and began walking toward the main stage, her shoulders set with determination. Marcus hurried to keep up with her. Wait. We're actually going? Shouldn't we call for help or something? Who would we call? Your authorities cannot handle this situation, and my allies are still 2 days away. Lyra's voice was calm, but Marcus could see the tension in her stride. Sometimes the only way through a trap is to spring it on your own terms. The main stage area was packed with people enjoying the headline act, a popular local rock band that had the crowd energized and singing along. Marcus and Lyra found themselves pushed forward by the press of bodies until they emerged into a clearing near the front of the stage. Immediately, Marcus spotted Agent Kane standing near the side of the stage, no longer bothering to hide. He raised his hand and made a subtle gesture. And suddenly the music stopped mid-song. The lead singer tapped his microphone in confusion. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kane's voice boomed across the festival grounds through the sound system. "We need everyone to move back slowly and calmly. This is a federal emergency." The crowd began to murmur and shift nervously, but instead of dispersing, most people pressed closer, trying to see what was happening. Marcus realized that Kane had made a tactical error. Nothing draws a crowd like being told to stay away from something. "People of Earth," Kane continued, his voice now carrying a strange electronic quality that made it sound inhuman. "You are about to witness the apprehension of a dangerous galactic fugitive who has been hiding among you." The crowd erupted in confused chatter. Someone shouted, "This is some kind of performance art." And others began taking out their phones to record what they assumed was part of the show. Lyra stepped forward, and as she did, her appearance began to shift. The elderly woman facade fell away like a discarded cloak, revealing her true form. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight. Her skin radiated a soft inner light, and the crown of energy materialized above her head. The crowd fell silent, thousands of people staring in awe at what was clearly no ordinary human being. "I am Lyra Astralane," she announced, her voice carrying clearly across the entire festival ground without any amplification. "Former Queen of the Seven Moon Empire. I came to your world seeking refuge and peace, but these hunters would see me destroyed rather than allow me to live quietly among you." Kane stepped forward, flanked by his operatives, who were now openly displaying their energy weapons. "You have violated the terms of your exile by using your powers on a protected planet. The sentence is death." "Wait just a minute," called out a voice from the crowd. Marcus was amazed to see Mrs. Patterson pushing her way forward, her walker clanking determinedly across the ground. Behind her came more of his neighbors from the apartment complex, and even some of the local police officers who had responded to the previous night's incident. "That young man there," Mrs. Patterson said, pointing at Marcus, "is one of the kindest souls I've ever met. If he says this lady needs protecting, then that's good enough for me." "This is a galactic matter," Kane replied coldly. "Human opinions are irrelevant." "Human opinions are the only ones that matter here," said a strong female voice from above. Everyone looked up to see a sleek silver spacecraft descending from the clouds, its hull gleaming in the afternoon sun. It touched down gently in the open area behind the crowd, and its airlock opened with a soft hiss. A woman in elaborate armor stepped out, followed by what was clearly an alien crew, beings of various species that Marcus had only seen in science fiction movies. The woman removed her helmet, revealing dark skin, silver hair, and eyes that sparkled with fierce loyalty. "Captain Zara Nightwind," Lyra breathed, her voice filled with emotion. "You came. We all came, my queen," Zara replied, gesturing to her diverse crew. "Every ship we could find. Every loyal soul still believing in your vision of a better galaxy." Kane's operatives raised their weapons, but found themselves suddenly surrounded as more ships appeared in the sky. Not just one or two, but dozens, a fleet of vessels representing multiple alien species and ship designs. "This is impossible," Kane snarled. "The Galactic Council authorized this operation." "The Galactic Council," came a new voice, deep and resonant, "is about to face some significant changes in management." A massive figure stepped from Zara's ship, easily 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished obsidian. Despite his intimidating appearance, he moved with the careful grace of someone accustomed to being around smaller beings. "General Marcus Ironhold," Lyra said with obvious affection. "My dear friend." "My lady," the giant replied, bowing formally. We have spent years preparing for this day. The Outer Rim systems have declared independence from the current council, and we have the military strength to back that declaration. Marcus felt surreal watching his namesake, but his attention was drawn back to Kane, who was speaking rapidly into a communication device. Command. This is Kane. We have a full rebellion fleet in Earth's atmosphere, requesting immediate orbital bombardment of the entire area. Bombardment denied, came the reply. But this time, the voice was different. Younger and female. This is Admiral Kessa Starborn of the Outer Rim Fleet. We now control the orbital space around this planet. The crowd of festival goers was watching all of this with rapt attention, cell phones recording everything. Marcus realized that this moment was being broadcast live across social media, and probably being picked up by news organizations worldwide. Kane looked around desperately, his operatives now clearly outnumbered and outgunned by the alien forces surrounding them. You cannot do this. The Earth is a protected world. Galactic law forbids open contact with pre-spaceflight civilizations. Galactic law also forbids hunting an exile who has renounced her crown. Zara replied firmly. You broke the treaty first. Besides, General Ironhold added with what Marcus somehow knew was a smile despite the alien features. It appears that this particular human civilization is ready for contact. They seem to be taking this rather well. End quote. Indeed, the crowd was remarkably calm. There were some people backing away nervously, but most were watching with fascination. Someone started clapping, and soon half the festival was applauding. A local news reporter who had been covering the festival pushed forward with her camera crew. Excuse me, Your Majesty? Can you tell us what this means for humanity? Are we about to become part of a galactic community? Lyra looked surprised at being addressed so directly by one of the humans, but she answered graciously. That would be up to your people to decide. My friends and I have come here not to conquer or control, but to offer friendship and mutual cooperation. Kane made one last desperate attempt, raising his weapon toward the crowd. If I cannot complete my mission, I will at least send a message about the cost of harboring enemies of the state. He never got the chance to fire. Marcus tackled him from the side, wrestling the weapon away with strength he didn't know he possessed. The energy device clattered across the ground, sparking harmlessly. As Kane struggled beneath him, Marcus felt that familiar electrical sensation and realized that Lyra was somehow enhancing his strength and speed. When Kane was finally subdued by General Ironhold's security team, Marcus found himself face to face with dozens of cameras and microphones. How does it feel to be the first human to make contact with an alien civilization? The reporter asked breathlessly. Marcus looked around at the incredible scene. Alien ships gleaming in the Arizona sun. Beings from across the galaxy standing peacefully among festival-goers. Children reaching out to touch the gentle tentacles of a squid-like alien who was patiently allowing selfies. It feels like the universe just got a lot bigger and a lot more wonderful, he said honestly. Over the following hours, more ships arrived carrying representatives from dozens of worlds. A temporary embassy was established in the festival grounds, and within days, Phoenix had become the unofficial capital of human-alien relations. The revelation that humanity was not alone in the universe dominated global news for weeks. There were challenges, of course. Some governments protested the unauthorized contact. Some religious groups struggled with the theological implications. And some people simply couldn't accept the new reality. But for the most part, humanity adapted with remarkable grace. It helped that Lyra and her allies made it clear they were interested in partnership, not conquest. Technology was shared carefully. Cultural exchanges began. And Earth's brightest minds were invited to join galactic scientific collaborations. Marcus found his life transformed in ways he could never have imagined. As the first human to befriend a galactic queen, he became an unofficial ambassador, helping to facilitate communication between species. His apartment became a gathering place for beings from across the galaxy, all drawn by stories of the human who had offered water to a stranger and changed the course of history. 6 months after that first encounter, Marcus stood in the same downtown park where the festival had taken place. A permanent embassy now occupied the space, its soaring spires a blend of human architecture and alien design. Ships arrived and departed daily, carrying diplomats, scientists, and tourists from hundreds of worlds. Lyra found him there, as she often did when he needed time to think. She had changed too. No longer hiding her true nature, she had become both a bridge between worlds and a leader in the growing galactic democracy that was emerging from the ashes of the old empire. "Any regrets?" she asked, joining him on the bench where they had first met. Marcus considered the question seriously. His old life was gone forever. No more quiet delivery routes, no more simple routines. Instead, he spent his days learning alien languages, mediating interspecies disputes, and occasionally traveling to other worlds as Earth's representative. "None," he said finally. "Well, maybe one small one." "What's that?" Marcus grinned and pulled a bottle of water from his bag. "I never get to do this anymore. Just offer someone a drink when they look thirsty. Everyone knows who I am now." Lyra laughed, that same musical sound that had enchanted him months ago. "Perhaps that is a good problem to have." "Maybe," Marcus agreed. "But sometimes I miss being nobody special." "Marcus Chen," Lyra said seriously, taking the water bottle from his hands. "You were never nobody special. That kindness that drew you to help a stranger? That courage that made you stand up to armed hunters? That wisdom that helped prevent a war? Those qualities were always there, waiting for the right moment to change everything." As the twin moons of Lyra's home system rose above Earth's horizon, a sight that still took Marcus's breath away, he reflected on how a simple act of kindness had rippled outward, to transform not just his life, but the destiny of entire civilizations. In the distance, he could see human children playing with young aliens, their laughter mixing in the evening air. Tomorrow, the first human students would leave for galactic universities, while alien scholars would begin teaching at Earth institutions. The future stretched ahead, full of infinite possibilities and wonders yet to be discovered. And it had all started with a bottle of water on a hot day, offered to a stranger who turned out to be anything but ordinary. Marcus smiled as he watched the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky, knowing that many of those points of light now represented friends and allies rather than distant unknowns. His grandmother had been right about kindness being the most powerful force in the universe. She just hadn't known how literally true that would turn out to be.